So I go down to the school and I sit in this little chair, this little blue, first grade chair, where I'm like, why am I here in a first grade chair to learn to teach math to a first grader?
Right.
Like, why am I doing this? What are you guys doing?
You were not homeschooled growing up, were you?
No, not at all.
Did you go to public school or private school?
Public school. I went to
Okay.
public school throughout college. Yeah.
Okay. And so you then decided to homeschool your kids, obviously. You've got 6 kids.
Mhm.
Talk about your decision to home educate them.
Yeah, so that was not always our choice. In fact, we would have considered ourselves one of those people who thought, well, we're going to raise missionary kids. My husband and I were missionaries. So we thought, oh, well, I mean, they're going to be salt and light, just
Right.
like we were salt and light. And in fact, we even started down that road. Our first attempt was to put our kids in private school, private Christian school, and we did that, and that was fine. And then it was time for the next one, the second born, to be in school. And so we thought, well, we'll put her in private Christian school. And then the private Christian school goes, we don't have a space for her. So we're like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, that's a formality, right? Like, you're not going to make us separate our kids. And they're like, no, we literally do not have a seat. Like, we don't have a space for her. Um, so we can't enroll her. And so I was like, okay, this is crazy. So I've got a kid in a private school, and then I've got a kid in kindergarten in a public school. They're at two different ends. Well, they're actually, it's two different towns.
Wow.
They're close by, the towns are, but they're at two different ends in different towns. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I do that for a semester. And then I'm thinking next semester, they're going to say, okay, we've got a space.
They added a chair.
Right. Like, I mean, just put her against the wall. It's fine, really. Just do something. And they don't. And so we took out the kid that was in private school. We put them both in the local public school. And we told ourselves all of the things that moms and dads often tell themselves. We live in a Christian community. It's a
Mhm.
small Christian community. All the teachers are Christians. We know them. They're all godly, and it'll be fine. And then they started coming home, and we started to realize that what we were doing was spending the rest of the evening erasing things that had been written on the tablet of their heart.
Mm.
And then we realized also that I was reteaching them while trying to make dinner. There are certain things that I'd say, no, you're not going to do that assignment, because that's not how I want you to learn to read. Our kids were being taught to speed read, where they wanted me to set a timer and then tell the kid to read. And I'm supposed to mark off the words that they miss or things that they flub while the timer's going. And the kid's supposed to somehow not pay attention to that. And so I refused to do it. And I remember telling one of the girls, the girls were the only two who ever went to any form of education outside of our home. And I remember telling the girls, you tell your teacher that your mom didn't allow you to do this assignment. And she was like, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm going to write a note. Mariah did not do this.
Because I told her not to.
Exactly. It's like, I don't want you to read for speed. I want you to read for comprehension.
Yeah.
I don't care if it takes you 6 days. I just want you to know what you've read. I want you to be able to think about what you're reading. And so all of this, the Lord was using, though, to tell us that
Yeah.
I've called you to do something. We were kind of resisting, like, we don't want to do that. But anyway,
Did her
long
teacher
story.
respond to your note?
Oh yeah, no, they were fine. Like, I was very familiar at their school.
Okay.
I was very familiar. Like, I wasn't, I wanted it to be clear. It's so interesting. And again, the Lord uses all of this. I
Yeah.
wanted it to be clear that I'm entrusting my child to you for this period of time. I am not giving up parental rights.
Mhm.
Like, and so I still had this like feel of, no, this is my child. Like, you
Right.
don't own her. And so all of that, though, but still kind of like, but I'm not going to homeschool. But I'm
Right.
not, but I'm not going to homeschool. I remember going down to the school. They were teaching Common Core math, and I remember saying, "This is the way you do it. This is right." And she said, "No, my teacher says I can't do it that way. Even if I get the right answer, it's wrong."
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you get the right answer, it's right. Okay. I don't understand. So I go down to the school and I sit in this little chair, this little blue, first grade chair, where I'm like, why am I here in a first grade chair to learn to teach math to a first grader?
Right.
Like, why am I doing this? What are you guys doing? And the teacher said to me, who by the way was a Christian, I knew to be a true believer, said to me after the class was dismissed because there were other parents there, she said, "We hate this,
Mm.
but we have no
Yeah.
choice."
Right.
She goes, "We have to teach what is handed to us. We
Yeah.
hate it." And so my final straw was my second daughter was going into second grade, and they said, "We're going to put her in a special needs class because we think that there's some, developmental delays." And I was like, "You're kidding." And she goes, "No, this is going to be really good. I think she's going to really excel, but we just need to, and I go, "There's nothing wrong with her. Like
Yeah.
we're not no, we're not doing that."
Right.
And sure enough, we just were like, "You know what? This is the final straw. We've been resisting the Lord. We've been feeling this tug, this pull, but there were so many different pieces that needed to fall into place for us to know that this is what the Lord is calling us to do." Well, let me rephrase that. The Lord was calling us to trust him.
Hmm.
So we made that decision first. And then we said, "Lord, if what you have called us to do, as far as I'm concerned, for work, if that's really your call, then I'll be able to do both. But if I can't do both, the kids are here clearly. So I don't have to guess at whether or not that's what you've called me to do." And everything worked out. And I'm shortening the story in the interest of time, but everything worked out. We bring the girls home. Our son, kid number 3, has been educated at home from the beginning, started reading when he was 3. But one thing very interesting about our second child, who is dyslexic, um, she said to me, she goes, "I never knew that I was smart after
Mm.
we started educating her at home." She said, "I always thought that was something." So she excels at math and science. So with dyslexia, it's a little bit difficult for her with reading, right? Like, so sometimes the words and the letters move. And so
Right.
she's got to reintroduce herself to these words every time she sees them. But homeschooling, she's able to learn at her pace and not feel pressure. But with math, I mean, she just excels, and she didn't know that she excelled because she was kind of tracked.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, well, if you're struggling in this area, then everything at this level
Right.
must just be difficult for you." Well, that's not true. And so with math, she rises to the occasion, goes above and beyond. And so anyway, all of that. But the main reason that we decided to homeschool was that we felt like we were having to counter a lot of what was being written on their hearts every
Yeah.
single day. We saw them maturing faster than we thought they should have matured.
Mm.
Coming home, and it's simple things. Your
Sure.
daughters who are 7 and 8, coming home and talking about their peers who have boyfriends and things
Right.
like that, and we're like, "Where is this coming from? This is ridiculous,"
Yeah.
And so anyway, and there was another instance that I'll just kind of leave out, but where our daughter came home and told us about a question she was asked by a peer. And I think that this is something that parents don't think about a lot, the peer-to-peer influence that
Yeah.
is present
Right.
on a school campus. And so we were just like, enough of this. Like, we're not going to fight with the culture to raise our kids. There are so many moms who will say to me, "I could never homeschool my kids," because they say, "I could never be home with my kids all
Yeah.
day long. I would lose my mind." And I go, it's not your kid that you have a hard time being around. It's the kids that your kids imitate that
Right.
you have a hard time being around.
Right.
It's the
Right.
kids that they bring home that you have a hard time being around. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Sometimes our kids will really push our buttons
Yeah.
and they come by that naturally. But it is compounded when, they are around other kids and they're influenced by those kids.